Let's discuss about events in Node.js. So this is another one of my favorite concept in Node.js or any JavaScript oriented programming, right? Because JavaScript is an event driven programming language, right? What is actually event driven? Let's talk about JavaScript later, but what is event driven, right? So first of all, what is event? Event is something which anything like what is an event? A function is an event, or like when something is happening on the road or some in the nearby colony, it is an event. A birthday is an event. So anything that happens at a time, that is called as event. So that can be anything. Literally, an accident is an event. A birthday party is an event, right? So anything which happens at a particular time is an event. So now what is event driven programming, right? Event driven means you write a programming or you write a logic which will be executed based on events. So let's say I say somebody joined the chat room, then these all things should be happened. So I cannot write a code which runs continuously infinitely, and I need to check if the number of people joined increases from 10 to 11, then it is new person joined, and when somebody logs out, new person disconnect. So this kind of programming becomes very difficult. That's where event comes in picture. So when somebody joins, that is an event. When somebody leaves a chat, it's an event. So I can write an event driven programming, whatever. So whenever somebody joins, maybe I'm not showing a notification on the top saying, hey, new person joined. And when somebody leaves, this person is left. So all of these are event driven programming. So you attach or you create events, and then based on that events, so when somebody joins, maybe you have to inform your team, and also you have to increase the scoreboard, or maybe you have to do some changes, or maybe you have to welcome that person, right? So every event will be attached with one event listeners or multiple event listeners. So whenever that particular event happens, all those event listeners, whatever we have registered while we have started our application, then those event listeners will be executed in sequential. So events in Node.js are by default given to us. I mean, there is an event emitter object or event emitter class which is given to us by default. So you can create your events and you can attach listeners. You can listen to the events, and you can write a complete event-driven programming language. So events are used at hell lot of places, like when a database is connected. So when you're trying to connect to a database, then database emits one event saying connection is successful. When database connection fails, then it shows an error event. So events can literally be helpful. See, let's say you have connected at this point of time to the database, and suddenly database, due to some reasons, database is down, and before getting down, they have programmed in such a way that it will emit failed. So then whoever has attached a listener to that particular event of database, they will get a notification that, oh, this has been failed, do whatever. So whatever event listener logic you apply there, that's going to be executed. So right, let's look at events in Node.js, how events can be created, how you can attach listeners, what are the different types of listeners are there, how the listeners execution is there. So let's deep dive and understand more about it, right? So whenever an event happens, right? So event emitters emit the events. So there are two main entities over here. Event emitters emit the events, and event loop, it continuously checks for any new events are happening in the program. So whenever there is a new event happening, that event handlers are attached as a callback to it. So whenever some birthday event happens, a birthday event handler will be attached. So event loop continuously checks for new events, and whenever it finds a new event, it triggers that particular or respective event handlers, right? So now let's start writing or programming in events, right? So let me create a new file. Let me create a new file for the events, right? So new file events.js. So again, we have an inbuilt module event emitter is equal to require events. Right, so event emitter has events object directly given to us, and this has a lot of functions. Add event listener, once, what are these, what are different types of functions we have, we'll look into them in detail, right? So basically event emitter, now you will create a new event or new event object, right? So joined event or Chatroom event emitter is equal to new event emitter. So this is my Chatroom event emitter. So what it is saying, event emitter class is defined and exposed by the events module. Oh, sorry, new event emitter typo, right? Now we have a event emitter object with us. With this event emitter object, you can emit the events, right? You can listen to the events. You can add listeners programmatically. So whenever some condition is satisfied, whenever something, so programmatically means some logic, you can add event listeners. You can remove event listeners. You can prepend event listeners. So when you add new listeners, the order of execution will be whatever we are right. So we'll see this event listeners, and then you can add event listener, which is going to be executed only once, right? You can get list of all events. You can get list of all event listeners, right? These are the different functions which event emitter object provides to us, right? So first what we'll do is Chatroom event emitter dot emit. So I'm emitting an event. I'm emitting an event joined. So now this Chatroom event emitter. So let's say function new person joined. So whenever somebody logs in, right? So this we will call this. We will say we'll do some other logic, new person joined. So we'll validate his details and all. But at the end we will emit this event. Now when you are emitting this event, so there will be a function main. Okay, just try to imagine when somebody is logging in and stuff like that, right? Function main, right? Now what I'm doing is Chatroom event emitter dot on join, right? This on is an event listener. So this is the way you add an event listener, right? It takes a callback function and arguments can be anything. So you can send name of the person. I'll take this name of the person from the command line arguments which we have learned. So npm install minimist. So here it is, minimist. We already installed it. So let me add it, right? Let me add it, and yeah, new person joined, and I can say the name of it or arguments of it. I can pull it from here, right? So arguments is equal to minimist of process dot argv dot slice of 2. Now when you console.log args, you should be able to see here args. node events.js name is equal to Vasudev. Oh, some syntax error. Yeah. Let me comment out this for a moment. Console.log args. There is a bit problem with this. We'll see what is the syntax. So what's wrong here? We didn't call this function at all, right? We didn't call this function. Now when you execute this code, yes, perfect. We got the arguments object. So now I want to read only the name. So I'll be sending over here, right? So I'll be sending it over here. And yeah, so whenever new person is joined, I'll emit a function, right? I'll emit a function. So this basically takes an event name and the data. So whatever arguments, whatever data you want to send, that takes it, right? Now the chat room event listener, whenever somebody is joined, it gets whatever data you are sending from here as an argument, data, and console.log new person joined the chat, right? New person joined the chat, and I will print the data. So now this function is going to emit only one event, and we are sending the name from the arguments, and it's added with only one listener. So see, listener is added even before emitting the event, right? Now when I run this code, see, new person joined the chat, Vasudev. So I emitted the event from here. It has been captured over here, right? So now what I'll do is, to make it even more bit reliable to you, I'll take a names array, constant names array, Iron Man. I'll write all the Marvel heroes, Spider-Man. Then I have Thor. Then I have Captain America. Then I have Black Widow. Then I have Hulk, right? So yeah, so now I will randomly join a new person. Okay, I'll randomly join a new person. So I'll start a set interval function, right? Set interval function. So this function will be basically executed for every 2 seconds, and what it is going to do is, it is going to call new person name, new person joined, but what is the index of it? Here I'll say, so I'll get a random index, constant random index is equal to, you remember, right? We generated this math.floor, then math.random, where the length, math.floor, the random is, it takes a random value, and then we have to multiply it with names.length. So this will give me a random index from this array, and then I'll use that array to emit the event new person joined. Right now I'll start my function. So see, new person joined, first person joined was Iron Man. Oh, why is it? It's always returning as 0. Because 0 plus names.length. Random index. So the logic is math.random gives some value between 0 and 1, and if it is 0.1, then let's see the logic. So basically math.random returns some number between 0 to 1, So first thing is we need to multiply it with the names.length plus 1, right? So this gives us whatever length it is, 3 or 4, so 0.1 comma 2 or anything of that sort. Then if I execute this code, first is the Captain America who joined, then Black Widow joined, then undefined, then Hulk, right? So see, whenever some person is joining, I have emitted the event and that particular listener is called. So this is what all the event emitter or event emitters does. So you can add multiple chat, you can add multiple, what do I say? You can add multiple uh, event listeners like this function dot dot another event listener, another event listener, right? And this is also possible. So when you do this and when you run the code, right, see, when you run the code, so order of execution is first whatever we have added to the event listeners, right? So if I change the order, then always this will be executed first. So order of adding the event listener is very important. So either you can add this way, or the other way to add event listener is like this. Programmatically, if you ever want to add, right? If you ever want to add chat room emitter dot add event listener. So here you will say what event it is. So here we'll go for joined event and you can add the function. So maybe you can put this logic in some if condition. So only when some condition is achieved, then you can add the event listener. So maybe once you want to listen to the close event of a database only once it is emitted the connection event, right? Such scenarios are totally possible. So you can add an event listener, you can remove an event listener, remove event listener. So when you are removing the event listener, you give the event name and you give the listener, right? So that particular event listener is removed. Then you can remove all the event listeners present on the thing chatroom dot event remove all event listeners, right? So there are other functions like this. So when you say if I want to execute an event listener only for the first time, then I can do chatroom event emitter dot once on the joined, right? So function on the joined. So here console.log, this will be executed only once, right? So if I take the name and I print it, so this particular event listener will be executed only once, no matter how many times you emit. See how many times I emit, that will be executed only once. So if I just console.log, you will understand. Though the function is I'll do it over here in this new event. Though the object selects names, the event listener will be called only once. So see, Black Widow is selected, but no event listener is executed. So when you want to run any event listener only for the one time, then you can use the on once, right? And as I said, the order of addition of event listeners on the code matters. So if you want to prepend, so adding to the bottom is easy, chatroom dot add event listener. But if you want to prepend, so you can use the prepend listener. So this will add on the top, and similarly prepend listener and prepend once listener. So you can add any type of event listeners on the top or on the bottom, right? And you can also set maximum listeners. So if you set maximum listeners to 0, then what will happen? right? If you set the maximum listeners to 0 and then you do this, correct? And when I do this, so set maximum listeners, what it does is returns a reference to so that it can be chained, right? So you can set maximum listeners to any number value and that will be limited. So let's design a small event listener or event oriented programming, right? So whenever a person joins, Chatroom is the perfect Chatroom. So on new message, on new person chat, new person joined, on reply to a message, on person left the chat, group chat, right? Left the chat. So you see lot of events. So these are the types of events which you can put it in a chat room. New message, person joined, reply to message, on person left the chat, or we have that already. So in games also we use this. Whenever somebody fires, we on that fire we play sound, right? So event listeners come in really very handy on such types. Like see here, I can add the new event listener for this function. So function console name. So now I can do like this: chatroom dot event listener, add event listener. So this will be added on joined event, and I have to just give the function name. And similarly, I can remove this thing dot remove event listener on the event joined and then console name. So now this event listener will be removed if present on that thing. And when I do console.log chatroom event emitter dot get maximum listeners, I'll run this, so it will give me 0. So because set maximum listeners have been set to 0, right? And if I increase it by 10, then the maximum listeners count is 10, right? So at any moment the maximum listeners is going to, by default the value is 10. You can increase it to anything, right? And yeah, what all functions we have left in discussion with event emitters. So all the event names which are defined on this function, right? So if I execute this, so see all the event names. So if I add multiple event names, then all that event names will be joined again. So I can do this, joined again. So all the event names can be captured with the help of event names, and then I have listener count. I will get the listener count off. So you can turn off this event emitter completely, raw listeners and remove listeners. Cool. So this is the entire event listener object in our Node.js. So it comes in very handy when you want to work on event driven programming, right?